Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast with Angela Dunn-Cartledge. Hey there, it's Angela from Been There, Done That. If you're navigating the wild, unpredictable world of grief, I want to invite you to something special. It's called Messy Mornings, and it's our free weekly newsletter filled with real talk, gentle reminders, and support that actually meets you where you are. Each week, I'll send you stories, reflections, healing prompts straight to your inbox. No fluff, no pressure, just the space to release, feel, and heal. You don't have to do this alone. Head over to donethatpodcast.com and sign up for Messy Mornings. It's totally free and it's made with you in mind. I've been there, and let's walk through this together. Hi, everyone. You are listening to the Been There, Done That podcast. I'm your host, Angela Dunn-Cartledge, and I cannot wait to have this conversation with my new friend, Diane Haworth. Thank you so much for being here, Diane, and I can't wait to have this conversation about grief and resilience with you.
Thank you so much. This is a topic that's really dear to me, especially now, and I just want to thank you for having the kind of courage it takes to have this topic discussed on this platform. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. I would love for you to tell our audience what brings you to the show, what you bring to the world, and what you're passionate about.
Well, the first thing I brought to the show is my Kleenex because it might be a wet interview, but I know that you're looking for authentic, so that all of me will be showing up today. I am a coach and a writer. I love to work in the spiritual realm. To me, there is nothing more exciting than reminding myself and helping my clients and students get realigned with our own inner divine truth. That to me is just so empowering. And I didn't realize actually how empowering it was until the recent death of my husband. And what I realized was, as wonderful as it is to practice these things and to teach them and share them, there is such a comfort and support when you are going through a trauma like I've been through, like you've been through, like everybody, right, that over the age of 21 has probably been through it in some sort of capacity, because we all live with loss.
It's just a matter of what kind, right? And unfortunately, the loss of a loved one is one of the most profound, if not the most profound loss that we can feel. Excuse me, because there's so many layers to it. There's the adjustment of the life that you had with that person in it, and also the pieces that you now have to rediscover about yourself as a result of that too. Yeah.
And if and how you are reacting and supporting the people around you that are feeling the same grief, not only for you to support you, but they're also grieving in their own way. Certainly with my husband's death, his biological children, and then my kids who've known him as their dad for almost a quarter of a century, that was just I just think of that as a different aspect of the grief.
Absolutely. The people that you rely on for your support are also grieving. The way in which we grieve is individual, yet you all lost the same person, but it's coming at that from different perspectives and doing those things in separate ways.
Yeah.
What and obviously being at different levels of healing beforehand. So that was where I was really going to go with that, was that you're all in one family, but all at different levels of your spiritual journey, to your point. Just different levels of age, different levels of wisdom, different levels of experience.
Absolutely.
talk us through a little bit of what you experienced as a team, as a family during that intense moment.
So this is where I'm grabbing my Kleenex. My husband hadn't been feeling well for a couple years, and he'd been under a doctor's care, and I will be very, very honest, he's not the best patient. He just wasn't. That just wasn't his thing. But we thought everything was under control. On April 4th of this year, I took him to the ER. We had gone to a doctor, and they said, you need to go straight to the ER. And unbeknownst to us or his medical team, he already had stage 4 cancer, and it had spread into multiple organs. So that was on the 4th of April. 18 days later, on my birthday, actually, the 21st, he passed. So it was 18 days of telling the kids. We have 4 kids. He had 2 biological kids. I have 2 biological kids. But we were together in this journey. And to your point about being in different experiences, my biological kids have gone through the death of their grandparents. They have sat in hospitals. They have held each other's hands while we waited for a test result to come through. Joe's my husband. Joe's kids had never done any of that. And their dad, who was 72 at the time, had never been to a hospital overnight since he had been born. So they weren't used to dad being sick. They were used to dad not eating really well, dad not exercising, dad having, some things here and there, but this was just absolutely mind-blowing to them. So that just the novelty of the American hospital experience added to their stress and the trauma. What I found so comforting was that no matter what, we all shared the same goal. And we actually didn't verbalize this until a couple weeks in, but our goal was the same: for Joe's comfort and his safety, and for him to feel loved.
That's
What's
so
better than that?
fantastic. Right, I so
What's better than
agree. What is better than that? And it could have been so, to add to the trauma, to add to the distance, it could have been the complete opposite and worse. And that is so beautiful in the experience that you had before this even happened as a family, that you were able to get to that place together and be able to hold hands and do that literally together, to be able to make that decision together. That is truly, truly beautiful. Absolutely.
I would love to tell you it was easy. It was not, but it was like unconscious. It just, that's what we did. And even though the kids, we've been a blended family for decades now. I say kids, they're in their 30s and 40s. So it's not like we all had Christmases together, or anything like that. That just wasn't the way that we did it. What was so interesting to me, and I've had a chance to think about this now for several months, I have a little bit of space, is that one of our many blessings was that while my husband had never written anything down, which wasn't great, he was a very verbal little fella. And we all knew what he wanted. Just in our daily lives, we had lost friends. We'd lost friends to cancer. We had seen friends go through years of treatment. We've seen friends suffer. And he was very clear: I don't want that. If that ever happens to me, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. I've lived a good life. I'm ready to go. So that was a blessing that all of us had heard it. We all knew it. We wanted to give him everything we could, but we all agreed and knew he was not interested in heroic means. The doctors, and they were several doctors, we were in 3 hospitals in those 18 days. Everyone concurred there was no available treatments, no available medical treatments that would prolong his life. There were things that could make him more comfortable. There were things that could help with his mental clarity when we tried all of that. Um, but one of our many, many blessings was that we were all together in what we were going to do for him
Right.
and how
Right.
we were going to love each other through this.
That is just so, I truly believe that that has helped you to embrace this new normal, this new life, um, even more because you didn't have dissension. You didn't have those things in the background um, that weighed you down from other people. I feel like no matter how long you have to prepare for something like a loss of a loved one, you still have regrets in there that creep in. How did you mitigate that for yourself? And I know it's still very, very new and very, very raw. So I totally understand if you're not mitigating it, that isn't where you are right now. But how did you see that and sort of walk through it? Yeah.
So, as we were going through that period of time, those 18 days, I really can't say I would have done anything different. Where the regret and guilt comes in would have been earlier. Why didn't I ask about that test? He and I were always very independent. You know, you do your thing, I do my thing. It wasn't until the last year or two that I was even going to the doctor with him, and that was because he went through a period of vertigo where he couldn't drive. And I had no idea some of the things that were going on. Um, so I had to deal with some guilt about that. One of the things I do in my work is forgiveness work. I mean, that's one of the things I teach, right? And I also teach that in this world of oneness, as I see it, right, that to be present in the present moment helps alleviate all suffering. So I know for me, I tend to be an overthinker. Then I could go back. I mean, goodness knows, like to second grade and go, why didn't I do this? And why didn't I do that? And, you know, and that junior high school dance, I shouldn't have worn that stupid green dress. That was dumb. I mean, that could take up the rest of my life if I let it. And I know that's not where any power of transformation is. That doesn't mean that mitigated some of the grief that was coming through. I realized the grief, which is still here, is just, and not to minimize it, but to me, it feels like it is like the final sigh of love from missing his physical presence. I actually feel closer to him emotionally, right, than I even did. I still feel him around. I still, I will still yell into the ethers and go, I wish you would have taken care of that. And why didn't we do this? And I need you to take care of that now. But coming back to that realignment of love, and I'm talking about divine love. I'm not talking about even the romantic love that he and I shared. I'm talking about what I see as the intelligent, creative, expansive energy of love that beats your heart and mind, that was the essence of my darling Joe. And I could tell when that essence was no longer in that body. It doesn't mean Joe's consciousness, to my way of thinking, was gone, but it was gone in that form. And that I do. Yeah, that I miss. And even though I am comforted, because I am, by the kids and the grandkids and by memories of things we did together and talking to his friends. Yeah. Going back to the
Yeah.
love is what helps me on a daily basis.
I really love that. Silly to say love that when you just said love, but I really resonate with that in that it it is clear that you wanted to look at the positive. You wanted to look at the good and focus on the good. It's so easy to say, just like you said, just like you answered me with, why didn't I do something while he was not feeling good? Why didn't we ask for more tests earlier on?
But I also hear you saying, this is reality. Now is now, and now is what matters. Now is where I actually have control of. Now I have responses that I can make. Now I can build relationships around me. Now I can continue to keep relationships full with all of our kids and all of the grandchildren and all those things. You can do those now in retrospect, I guess, as a way to keep his legacy alive. And I love that you brought up your own work, because that was where I was going to go next, is what tools you utilized in this process that you could even share with your kids to say, hey, or with his friends, these are the things that I would recommend in this situation. And of course, you can use them on yourself too. What tools, what resources did you bring to the table when you went through this and as you are going through this?
So I really appreciate you asking that. And one of the things is, to step back a little bit on what you referenced, is what I believe is real. And what I believe is real is what's eternal. Me being upset about something I did 30 years ago is not real. That is just an illusion that lives in my mind. Love is real. That's what's real. Those connections of love and respect and compassion, those are real. And understanding that, because I already had a foundation in that, I could go through this very bumpy hospital and hospice experience with a different understanding. So the first thing for me was, I understood his physical body was going to be gone. And as horrible as that was at the time, I knew I wasn't going to lose the essence of him. That was comforting to me. Learning to just, in my breath, stay in the present. Because when I don't care how grounded and how much you meditate, I meditate.
How enlightened you
Right?
are, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not exactly jumping over rainbows on unicorns. So I'm just like in the hospital. I'm the wife, I'm the mom, I'm the extended mom. Having medical professionals say to you, your husband is dying. He's not going to make it through this. It's too late. We have to make these kinds of decisions. You don't enlighten yourself out of that. However, if your foundation is on trusting that you live in a loving universe, and we have a lot of information that would steer us otherwise right now. And I do understand, and I want to be very clear, not everyone has the experience that we had in the hospital. I actively said to myself, I know this is sacred time, and I know there are angels disguised all around me, and I would look for them and they would show up. It would be the nurse that took the extra time to hold me, the doctor that would take care of the kids. They were everywhere. But I looked for them and I trusted and I knew they were there. That was one thing. Trusting that everything was going to unfold for the highest and best, even if it wasn't what I thought was going to be the highest and best. I do know my husband did not like feeling sick. He hated feeling dependent. I am comforted knowing that he is free of any physical discomfort and pain. That is really free. So meditation helped me get there. This trust, and to me, I started off pretty normal for being what I ended up to be, and I was in a regular Presbyterian church here in a little tiny town in Warrenton, Virginia. Very loving environment, very supportive. But probably 15 years ago now, I started studying A Course in Miracles. That's been very grounding and supportive for me. I also have a process that's called the Be Love Principles that I use every day. And if it's okay, I'll give a demonstration of how I used it.
I would love it.
Okay. So there's 4, and you can use this process to go from a constricted human ego view, like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen. What am I going to do? I'm in fear. That's where I go to overwhelm, overthinking, fear, right? I'm always jumping off the cliff and no bridges appearing. There's no, yeah, I'm
You're
just like,
unsafe, right?
yeah,
In those
I am
moments,
unsafe.
you are unsafe.
And I'm
Absolutely.
untethered. I am not grounded. That's the way it feels for me. So I will shut my eyes, go inside, and the first principle is show me how to greet this person, place, whatever it is, with an open heart, without an agenda. So what that does for me is it eliminates my fears, it eliminates the filters, it eliminates my expectations. When we are seeing anything, another person, an event, a tragedy, whatever it is, we are seeing it through our own filter. Of course, we're bringing our biases and our prejudices and our fears and our judgments. But what happens is there's this whole other world of possibility that we can't see because we are stuck in our tunnel vision. So that first one has been really important for me. And I would use that when I was thinking about him today. How do I greet Joe? With an open heart, without an agenda? Because his mental capacities declined. What he could do one day, he couldn't do the next. So I was greeting a new person. My husband was a different person every day. How can I greet him where he is today without my fears and my grief? The second principle is see the divine essence in everyone and everything. When I would say to myself, show me, I know the divine is here, show me, I could see that even he was very ill. My husband had this little mischievous streak, and he was still pretty funny. I mean, it was weirdly inappropriate funny in some ways, but that little spark, that little mischievous soul that I fell in love with, is still there. That was that divine part of him. And I could see it in everyone. I could see it in the phlebotomist that had to come in and take, God knows how many vials of blood. And of course he didn't want to do it. He was already dehydrated. It was difficult. And I could see them instead of, here's somebody that's going to cause him pain. I could see this is someone who's trying to do their job in the most loving way possible. And gosh, what a hard job that must be. I could see them differently. So that third principle is forgive quickly, completely, and unconditionally. That's what my clients call the other F word, right? Forgiveness. That's not their favorite. What I found is if I've been practicing the first and the second principle, then this third one is more like a unraveling. It's more like I realize what I thought needed to be forgiven just really wasn't even there in the first place. So an example would be, I know I've done this before in the past. I have seen someone in the grocery store in some kind of a situation, and they said something and I would have thought, well, that was ugly. I can't believe they said that. What a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. And then you find out a week later, right, they've had their own trauma and they were just in their own space. There wasn't anything to forgive. They never did anything. They were just trying to live their life the way we try to live ours. That's it. Now, there's lots of nuances with forgiveness, but because we're speaking in my particular circumstance, I would say, show me what are my forgiveness circumstances? What are my forgiveness opportunities today? And I look at that as a invitation from love, God, universe to let go of those illusions that I might have had. And I mean, there were some days I needed to do my forgiveness work on myself. Like, why didn't I see this? Right. On him. Why didn't you take better care of yourself? Whatever it was, right? Because you're not in those situations, you're not sleeping, you're not eating right, all that stuff's going on. The fourth principle is remember you never left the light of the all. My belief is that we really are all connected. There is a thread of love, of humanity, of essence that runs through all of us. And when I could remember that, and realize that while his body was going to obviously fail, and it did, that essence, that light never goes out. It just transforms. We all learned as kids, energy is neither created nor destroyed. If you have had the honor of being with someone at the end, it's like whatever they are is in the body one moment and then it's just not. It's just not there. So those were some of the things that I would talk to the kids about as they asked, because everybody's going in through their own thing, right? But I did say this to them, and this is what I would tell anyone. It's easy to love somebody at Christmas and at their birthday and when you're at a concert and when you're, having a good time. Love, and those are wonderful aspects of love. I think it was a very sacred time, especially the last weekend. Joe came home on a Friday and he died on Monday, and that was over Easter weekend. And everybody was there. Both of our girls and their husbands, the grandkids, our sons were there. We were just camped out here at the house. And I said to them, this is sacred. This is the sacred part of love. Because we were having to give him his medicine. We were having to try to bathe him. We had to change him. Certainly not things the kids thought they would ever have to do. And they all stepped up. They all stepped up to support me, to support each other. It was so sweet. It was so sweet. And they did it in their own way. That's what was so amazing to me.
Because you gave them the space to do it in their own way. That's what I see in that example and in that story, is how much it's a testament to the relationship you had before this happened, to allow everyone to experience and count on each other throughout this process. It's such a I look at it as a beautiful story because I know it is so personal to you, but I also look at it as a beautiful example of what I also believe is love. What I see love manifesting its way into our humanity. We definitely don't do love perfectly as humans. We don't do a
We don't understand it.
we don't, and
We don't.
we certainly don't understand unconditional. That just doesn't make sense to us at all. Everything is conditional to us humans, and so that is such a beautiful example of how your tools show up, but how you show up at the same time. So I'm just so intrigued by your modalities, and yet also you as a human. I'm so excited to just know you. I really, really, really resonated with the changes that you described, what he was able to provide. And I don't mean provide. I keep saying words like give and provide. I don't
I
mean it
get
that
it.
way. Yes, good.
I get it.
Glad. I'm really glad that he could only come up to a certain bar. He couldn't. My husband is a physical therapist. And I say that a lot on this show, but he says today is the best day, because in that kind of a situation, in those 18 days, the day you had was the best day you were going to get. It was different than the day before. It was different than the day tomorrow will bring, but this is the best day that you're going to get for today. And that it is so powerful to know that we can show up in that day with the most capacity that we can show up with, knowing that there's trauma and sadness and grief happening all the time, every minute, every second of those days, but yet you can do it to the fullest capacity that you can be allowed to have. What recommendations do you make for people that have already experienced the loss? They didn't have the beautiful foundational work that you did, the knowledge that you did before coming into that situation. What recommendation and where do you start with people that need to sort of go back and relearn, even through the grief and trauma that they are experiencing actively at that moment?
Well, those are all great questions. And one of the things that I do always encourage people to do is, first of all, be tender with yourself. And some people will go, "Oh, well, I'm lazy or I'm in denial." And I don't know, maybe you are. But maybe, just maybe, there needs to be room for grace, room for some tenderness to sit with what's going on, right? And to process it. And that's different, the way that you choose to process it. For me, one of the things that I suggest, right, to my clients is to, even in the grief, even in the trauma, how can I realign to that, what I know to be true today? And if that's too big, how do I do it right now? And sometimes that's simply tapping your heart and taking some deep breaths. It can be that simple to bring you back here. I have a mentor who has a phrase that I always thought was so funny. When he works, he's a psychologist, and when he works with people and they're in the middle of everything, like we all do, right? Get that way. He'll say, "Where are your feet?" And immediately you're like, "Oh, like I guess they're at the bottom of my legs." But it grounds you, right? It takes you out of your head and it grounds you. Now, does not mean you should not process your grief. Of course, you should. I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything that ends in "ist," by the way. So everybody needs to get the medical and mental health things that they need to do. From a spiritual perspective, the things that bring you back to me, that neutral place of peace. And it may not be, maybe you're not going to get a 10 out of 10 on that first day, and that's okay. Can you just take a few breaths and get a little bit of peace that way? Can you go pet your animal, your cat, your dog? We know what that does. Can you take a walk in the sunshine? And all of those things seem huge the days after the event. It just is like, no, there's just no way I could go take a walk. But maybe you can. What I suggest to people, it depends on where they are in their journey, right? Then this is something that someone gave me. What 5 things do you need to hear today? What 5 things do you need to hear today? I used to journal that. And some days it would just be, you're going to get through the day. Some days it's like you're going to be able to do XYZ, whatever it is. Some days it was like you did the best you could with what you had and what you knew. But ask yourself, what do I need today? And if your brain won't let you do that, you tap your heart, shut your eyes, take some deep breaths, and ask, what do I need today? And be honest. Maybe you just need to cry. I've had crying days. I've had crying weeks. Then go cry. Then go cry. We know how healthy that is. But that coming back into this present moment, right? Because there's so many things, the hospital bills and the insurance, and there's just so many things that come at you, right? And then how can I help support my kids? How do I support the family? What are we going to do about the celebration of life? All those things. Taking time to realign to what I know is true. What do I know is true here? Joe's love, I love him. The kids loved him. We still love him. We love each other. That's what's true. That's what's true. Coming back to that place of truth just helps relax me. And then get the help that you need. If you need mental, physical, spiritual help, get the help you need. Listen to wonderful podcasts like this.
Know that you're not alone. I mean, that's what I really hear the most in what you're saying, is that you were so blessed to have an immediate support system with strong infrastructure. Everybody linked hands, everybody was right there. But in the cases where that may not be the case for a client, an audience member, a patient, whatever terminology we want to use, you're still not alone. That you are surrounded by the angels, the miracles of it, the love that still exists even after the physical body isn't here anymore, or doesn't have the essence in it anymore. It doesn't That's not the point. I really, really, really love the fullness of grace that you just exude. It just comes out of you by, you don't even have to say anything. It's just who you are. Is the amount of grace that you give is so comforting to those of us that didn't do all of the wonderful work and knowledge base before we had our uh, immense trauma and grief. That to hear you say tenderness, to hear you say grace, I actually feel it in my body when you say it. And so I don't have to think, uh, I don't know that I can give myself that, because you do it just by speaking. And so, and by not speaking, even just sitting and listening to someone, I want to acknowledge that, but also to thank you from every cell in my body for the amount of love that you give to other people in this work that you do, because it is not energetically easy. It is a lot of energy to give, and that is incredible, truly incredible.
That's very sweet. I appreciate it. I can tell you that the way I've lived through this death is not the way I lived through my father's death 12 years ago. But I would, if I can share one thing, and I hope this helped me tremendously, and I hope it helps everybody that's going to hear this. And this is something that they talk about in A Course in Miracles. The part of me that is worried, fearful, mad, angry, all our human stuff, which comes with this, right, is not the part of me that will allow the grace and the compassion and the healing to occur. That's why I've always realigned to the heart, realigned to the heart. This is where your power is. Because believe me, if the ego Diane Haworth was talking to you, it'd just be crazy town. That's where it was for years. It's just this, and it was just like a lot of people that I know, my life was a mess. And it was like, do I want to go through the rest of my life like this, or is there another way? And I found there was another way. And I think I mentioned to you when we talked in the pre-interview, going through all this stuff with my husband, I do remember driving somewhere, coming back from a hospital or whatever, going, this stuff works. Wow. This, it kind of occurred to me.
Doing it. Look at that.
Oh, this is a very different experience than when my dad was sick. There was just constant fights with the hospital and the doctors and insurance and blah, blah, blah. And when I consciously realized the way my frustration and pain was contributing and withdrew that energy, even things with my dad just unfolded in a different way. Yeah, we affect so much of what our experience is, right? Because it's through that filter. And when we not only allow ourselves to go into that space, but when we recognize what others can do, not from this space, but from this space. I mentioned that the kids, right? We're all here, my 30s and 40-year-old kids. One of the things I consciously did, which is very different from what I used to call crazy Diane, and I say that lovingly without, right, referring to myself, is before I would have had to control everything. You do this, you do that. I would have just orchestrated the whole thing. This time, my heart said, they know what to do. Let them do what they want. Now, it was amazing. My daughter, when we came home from the hospital, came home a couple hours before the medical transport that came to meet with hospice. She had come in and she had taken little yogurt jars and she had filled them with fresh flowers and put them all over the house, just so he would be greeted with that and we would be greeted with that. She'd made all this food because that's what she does. My son, who is one of the things he's done in his life, he was a first responder. He created this he recreated this like first aid station where all our supplies were, and here were our gloves, and here was this, and here was that. And my daughter made some big medicine chart, and it was all, even hospice was like, who did this? But that was their gifts. Joe's son, who's got just the biggest heart, he is the one that would be at Joe's side. We were all there. We were all in our little family room. But his son and I slept in the room with him. And I would, wake up, open my eyes at 2:00, and he was the one that was just sitting there holding his hand, just being with him when the rest of us had conked out. It just allowing them each to bring what they wanted to the situation. Not only was it just beautiful, but it was so helpful, and it was so much better than if I had gone back to my old ways and dictated. I just let love move them, and I trusted it would work, and it did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just is such a testament, again, to how you love, but how you showed up in this moment, how you brought it to your family, and now are bringing it to our audience, to be able to say, even though your situation may have already occurred, you are not in the 18-day hell that Diane was in. You are not in it right this minute. It's already happened. You can still unravel it by coming at it from a place of love. You can still fix the way you feel about it, or the experience that you had, by coming at it in a place of love. It is I really appreciate the opportunity that it gives someone like me, who does not feel like she came at the situation with love, and continued to not have that in the experience since. That it gives us the opportunity to change the narrative right now. Doesn't matter that it happened however many years ago, could have happened. Yeah, doesn't
It
have any.
doesn't matter. And when you have space to realize, you and everybody who's ever going to hear this, we always do the best we can with the knowledge, with the experience, with what we have. You just do. You just do. Because if you could have done something differently, you would have. And who says
Especially
it?
something better, right? Especially if it meant that I had a more fulfilling experience in the moment. Yeah, absolutely. I would have chosen that in a heartbeat if I had known it existed.
And how do we
Absolutely.
know that was the right thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't wish pain on you or anyone else. And I think you know that.
Yeah.
And look what you're doing. Look at the love and the joy that you are spreading. I remember being in the hospital with my dad, and that was just a very elongated years kind of thing. And I remember at one point, my sister and I were in the waiting room, which has got a great name because that's all you do in there, right? You just wait for doctors and
You're
tests and,
just sitting.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were waiting for God knows how long. And I remember looking out, our hospital is on a hill, beautiful view. I'm looking out, and there was a big mess with tests and with insurance. And there was a nurse we didn't like, and, all the drama, like it could have been a little medical drama on Netflix. And I just remember having this thought come through me. This wasn't thinking, but it came through me. And it was, what does love look like here? And how does love move me forward? And everything changed from then. Everything. Then I could see that love was reflected in all these things that I thought were chaotic. I could shift and just say, where's love asking me to go now? What is love asking me to do? And it was amazing that nurse that we didn't like for whatever reason, I don't even remember now, she suddenly got transferred to a different floor. We never saw her. No, we never said a word. We never saw her. All of a sudden, the insurance company called my sister, who was dealing with all the insurance, and said, oh, we see there's been a big mistake. Don't worry, we've taken care of it. And it just dissipated. What had been the biggest kerfuffle, as my British friends say. It just unraveled. And that's all I did. What does love look like here? And how does love move me forward? And that's something that I ask people to consider. I used to journal with that every morning for years.
It's a brilliant takeaway from this conversation. It is a brilliant thing that we can apply immediately, something that we can take away from this conversation and be able to start doing right now, and to have that conversation with ourselves, with our family, with anything, any situation that we're in. I really, really can't wait to implement that. That's going to be a really beautiful thing to see what comes up, right? To see what is the answer to that question on a daily
Today.
basis. Yeah,
Yeah, today.
right,
And I
right.
said I used to do that every morning. And what I would do is settle myself. I always like to tap the heart, right? The thymus. And then just let it come out without judging. Oh, that sounds stupid or what. Just write it. As a matter of fact, the way that I got those Be Love principles was in response to that very question. What does love want me to know today is what that was. What does love want me to know? And all of a sudden, this process came. Whatever, I do want to say this if it's okay.
Yeah,
Every decision you make, it counts. You don't have to have a big process. You don't have to get up on stage. You don't have to be on a beautiful podcast like this, although it's great. Every loving decision you make toward yourself and other people contributes to a more loving, collaborative world. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we're all trying to birth right now? And each of us have a part in it.
yeah, 100%. And not just in losing a person, but in our everyday lives.
Everyday
To
life.
be able to just experience that on a more regular basis would be unbelievable. It would be phenomenal. Yeah. How can we find you, Diane? How can we work with you? How can we um, reach out to you and work with you in this world?
Well, thank you. If you're interested in my signature work, which is the Be Love Principles, I have a website, beloveprinciples.org. And I actually have free workbooks. I even have coloring sheets, meditations, things that help you work through processes. I'm all over YouTube. I have a website that is More from Diane, Diane, and there's more free stuff there. You has direct links to my YouTube and how to get in touch with me and coach if that's what you're interested in. But as much as I would love to work with everybody, my prayer is that you are loving and tender to that beautiful human that you are. And if you want help and support, I even have a monthly membership that's a fun way to do it. It's called the Empowered Spiritual Path. And we just talk about stuff like this every month.
I love it. Thank you so much for uh, your grace, your vulnerability, telling your story, being available to the audience to be able to walk them through this journey. And thank you for being you. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you. I feel like I made a new best friend. Thank you so much.